Hi everybody, my name is Nick Bradshaw. I'm the CEO of AI Media Group. We are the curators of AI Expo Africa 2021 online, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to the show and today's proceedings and to get them underway for you today. Will you join us at a time of great adversity? We're running our show online again this year. It was a great success, even though the circumstances were very difficult last year. We had 2,500 people register interest, and we're very happy to announce that we've had over 9,000 people register interest for this year. So I know the online format is something I think people are growing tired of, so do bear with us. We hope we've put together a great lineup for you for the event, and that you find the sessions, the networking, the vendors, and everything that we put together on an interesting prospect for you. We've actually been joined from delegates from over 80 countries this year, which is almost double what we had last year. And I'd really like to send a big thank you to our vendors that are in the Expo this year and that join us as supporters of the show. Without them, we would not be able to put the show on and to do the work that we do in the community throughout the year. So I want to extend a big thank you to everybody that's exhibiting today, and we wish you well with the show. In particular, I'd like to thank our event partners, Chwani, Economic Development Agency, Intel, NVIDIA, and Telcom. Again, without our anchor partners, it becomes very difficult to put on a show like this, and we really do thank you for your commitment to the program this year. In addition to that, I'd also like to acknowledge our premium exhibitors, Microsoft, Accubits, Darktrace, and Treasury One Automation. Again, thank you for joining us this year and making the event possible. I'd like to specifically mention Chwani Economic Development Agency. They're our virtual destination partner for the show this year, and we'll be taking the show to that region next year into Johannesburg, Pretoria, where we take the show next year when it returns back to face-to-face, and also for Telcom for being our corporate social responsibility partner for this year, helping us showcase academic innovation in the Telcom Innovation Walk. Thank you for that. If we look at some tips for you to get the most out of today and the rest of the show, if I can tell you to do 6 key things, this will really help your event experience. So populate your show profile and tell us a little bit about yourself in that profile. The platform is password protected. We keep your information secure. So do tell us who you are, what you're doing, and populate your profile as much as you can. It helps with the networking. It helps you get more out of the show so people know who you are. The second thing is to check out your event bag. There's some pre-populated sponsored items in there from the vendors. A copy of our program is in the entire show program is also in the event bag. And you can collect information from the resource center and the vendor booths as you go for download later on. So use your event bag. It's a great way to collect valuable resources during your time at the show. The third thing is you've got business cards, V cards that you can collect as well. And as you add them to your profile, you can download them from the after the show to Excel. Please do visit the resource center. There are some unique content, articles, training materials. There's the Synapse magazine copies are in there as well. And then 5, build your agenda. Click on the agenda button, look at the program, choose the talks that you want to go to. And basically, you'll never miss a talk because you'll be notified that the talk is starting. So I encourage you to do that. And then finally, number 6, click the Who is Here button, and that will help you understand who's around you, who you can talk to, and who you can network with. For our social program, we're really happy to announce that NVIDIA provided us access to the AI art gallery. So check that out from the social program link and really get inspired with some of the very interesting uses of AI in the creation of art, music, and new media. So finally, my last job as part of this introduction is to introduce our plenary keynote speakers. It gives me great pleasure to introduce John Kamara, who's the founder of the AI Center of Excellence in Kenya. He'll be followed up by a keynote from Stephen Ibarakai, who's the chairman of Reeds Capital in Canada. He's also one of the world's leading AI for Good community leaders and co-founder of the Global AI for Good Summit. So please check out Stephen's talk. And then finally, we're going to be joined by Safroadu Yaboa Amakwa, who's the Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer from Intel USA. So 3 superb plenary keynote speakers. We really wish you well at the show and get the most out of today. Thanks very much.
Hi, my name is John Kamara. I'm the founder for the AI Center of Excellence. I'm happy to be here at the AI Expo 2021. And I'm really excited about this opportunity to connect with the community, talk to experts, and also be part of the industry that is driving the change in machine learning and adoption of AI. And also, a big thank you to the organizers, Nick Bradshaw and the AI Media Group for, again, relentlessly working hard to put this event together, and also all their sponsors. What I'm going to talk about today is really AI-centered growth for the development of 4IR. Obviously, we've all heard about the fourth industrial revolution, and it's something that we consistently talk about all the time. Last year, the year before, and even going forward into the future. And one of the important things is, how do we get Africa involved in 4IR? How do we get Africa involved in the smart technology era? And the argument is always about what does Africa need at the minute. And we've seen the explosion of the startup industry in the continent. We're currently seeing an explosion of entrepreneurships. And a lot of this is to solve real problems that we have, which is very, very important. But for me, my argument is always, as anybody who knows me, is on twofold. We do need to solve the problems we have today. But at the same time, we need to start building smart technology solutions to help us even better solve the problems of today, but be ready for the problems that we are going to face tomorrow. And some of those problems include things around climate change. Some of those problems include things around how we use data in robotics, and how we also use data for improved machine learning products as well. And I think the one thing that Africa produces consistently is data. How do we harness the value of that data? How do we make that data equitable? And also, how do we make sure we can use that data to actually produce solutions that solve problems now and also bring us into the next phase of the fourth industrial revolution? So, and at the core of that is education. You cannot become part of a solution if you don't have the skill. No matter how much you talk about it, it just doesn't work. And what we've seen is Africa is consistently left behind when it comes to smart technology solutions, when it comes to using AI, when it comes to developing AI solutions that transform, change the world, when we come to use AI solutions in robotics, in climate change, in agriculture, even in space travel. Where is our continent? Where are the super smart young kids? Where are the super smart young people that we provide the education, the knowledge, and the opportunity to grow so they can actually become part of this exercise? So for me, the important thing here, the baseline foundation of all this, and every other person who is very focused around education as a key driver for 4IR, I believe that knowledge centers are one of the key ways that we can actually drive this change. And the idea of knowledge centers, focuses around a number of different things. First of all, it is, how do we upskill people? As you see here in my presentation, a knowledge center. The mission of Africa is to build capacity and unlock the potential of AI. And that is the mission where, government, private sector, big companies, big corporates must have some kind of a selfless attitude to say, it's not just about us, it's not about my company, it's not about it's about how do we come together to put our resources into one bucket and help create this solution. And it's also the same thing as challenging the big corporations to say, well, what real part of your development fund, or what real part of your innovation fund do you really use for innovation that doesn't necessarily solve a problem for your company, that actually helps to drive a dynamic growth for the industry and helps to develop a lot of young people. So when I started looking at this and being involved in so many different conversations about the role of AI and how AI is used in a number of different sectors, the thing that kept coming back to me was the capacity. The capacity, the capacity, the capacity. How do we get involved? Because one, if we build capacity experts in AI and ML, basically what does that do? It creates an economy of scale for the African continent. When it creates an economy of scale, it means we have a lot more young people who are able to become part of that solution. Also, when we train ML, AI engineers, very professional data scientists and, advanced data engineers, what does that also do? It brings foreign direct investment into those countries as well. It also allows those countries to participate in the smart technology era that we keep talking about, that we're involved in, that is evolving around us. Look at countries like Israel, look at all these other countries around the world who, the generation of young people who are driving, smart change is because of the knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge within that generation. The consistent transfer of knowledge within that generation means they also become exporters of knowledge. They become exporters of technology. Look at Ireland. So it's very, very important that we sort of look at, FIRE and AI and smart technology, and without looking at the knowledge building as part of that, it becomes no matter how much our startup industry grows and we keep producing this data, we will continue to, we will not leapfrog, which, what I believe is we will continue to chase the pack nonstop. So the first thing is building education. And in building education, there's a number of structural issues that we need to tackle. One is the desire, the willingness, and the interest of the government supports. And as you see there, to build expert AI engineers, you need that foundation, you need that support. Two is also equipment. You can't train data scientists in Africa or AI engineers and they don't have the equipment to compete with the guy in the US or in the UK. It's a problem. It's impossible for them to actually become successful. And the third part is also providing the convenient environment and the need and desire to actually push research and development. One of the some of the areas that we look at when we want to really drive this change is one, if we really focus on training people in machine learning, which is a very, very core skill. If we look at deep learning, where we start really looking research and development, and we start looking at building complexities in model, building complex solutions. We look at data science all the way to very advanced data engineering, and then we also look at applied AI. And the application, the practical use cases, and begin to do what we call practical knowledge creation rather than theoretical knowledge acquisition. And in that comes the deployment model, where we then look at how do we deploy these platforms? What are the partners, the Azures, the Googles, the Amazons? How do we leverage this infrastructure that they build to deploy, and how do we create a mission-centric exercise for young people and for the really smart young Africans to participate in this exercise also with the global community. The other part as well, one of the key drivers of this is, first of all, it contributes to employment pool of AI globally. But also, if we focus on knowledge acquisition through knowledge centers, it basically allows us to also build AI-driven startups truly real AI-driven startups in Africa that can actually transform the economy, that can also become change makers for some of the real problems that the world is going to go through. That we cannot differentiate ourselves. Specifically focusing on climate change, for example. Either we're in Africa or in Europe, we are all going to suffer from climate change. And there's so many things that AI can do to help us in this particular space, especially in Africa, where even collection of data, the use of that data, the model, can begin to teach us how to do things better. For example, in hydroponics farming, one of the things that we're also looking at how AI helps us improve hydroponics farm and increase food production and food security. So if we don't have the expert engineers, if we don't have the people trained in practical use cases of how to build and solve these problems, we're just going to be talking about it and we're waiting for the rest of the world to come and solve this problem for us or provide us with solutions. And that brings us back to the same consistent Africa of old, where we're always playing catch up because we're not willing to invest in the core foundations that will drive the ecosystem. If you don't build on a solid foundation, no matter how big and beautiful the house is, one day it will collapse. And when it collapses, what happens is we're back to square one in the same economy, and then the world has moved on. So I truly believe even our education center, our universities, the knowledge centers that we have should have specific AI-based trainings that allow for young people, even without necessarily having to be an ML expert, to even begin to understand the concept of machine learning, how, even in business, and also use the same to promote ethical AI, where we also train young people about the ethical nature of AI and also building, models and programs that are not biased in nature. And also what it does, it also supports policy as well, and it contributes to research in AI and development. If we look at all the research that come out in AI, where in Africa have we seen research? So I really think that the knowledge center model around Africa that is focused around education, knowledge acquisition, practical acquisition of that knowledge, and then underpinned by research and development. One of the other things also that I think is important is also bringing leaders and the private sector into the conversation about AI. Again, even if you train all these people and if you provide all this knowledge in our economy, and the key drivers of these change in economies, you have the key to the financial wealth, do not understand what you're talking about, you're still back to the loggerhead situation. Why would I invest in innovation in my company if I don't understand the value of innovation, the ROI for my business? Why would I invest in data-centric models for how to build my products if I don't understand the return on investment? So again, having business leaders involved in AI, having programs that are centered around training leaders, training management staff, training government officials around the value first of data, the need for structured data, and also the need for machine learning and the use cases that allow us to, and then practical utilization of these use cases. Those are some of the things that I think when you start looking at building knowledge centers across Africa that become extremely important in how you build those knowledge centers to say what are the problems that it is going to solve, and the baseline of solving that problem is in that capacity development. If you look at the market size for AI, for example, it's by 2030, we say the $15 trillion market. The demand for AI engineers are growing consistently, data scientists, deep learning, but online, the training for these people is becoming more expensive by the day. The acquisition of knowledge that they need is becoming more expensive by the day. If we look at countries, places like Dubai that are literally spending on developing AI, on developing AI experts, and also acquiring the best knowledge in the industry to come and help develop their market, all of a sudden you see a massive FDI going into those countries. Again, that means for African countries, how does AI, how does the knowledge that we bring into smart technology help us to generate more wealth and have a shared economy of wealth, that we can also participate in the global market of that $15 trillion market economy that everybody is looking out to. If you look at startups in specific AI space, apart from maybe South Africa, there's very few startups across the whole continent that can truly say that we're an AI-driven or a deep learning startup that are building solutions that actually solve a specific type of problem. Again, if you look at some of the statistics in AI and research, again, Africa does not participate in research because, again, the concept of research, to an extent, we leave it to universities. But I believe that research and innovation has a lot to do with a triangular effect. There's the government, there's the university, and there's the private sector. Without those three coming together and forming that triangle, you'd always find that when we leave it to university, yes, they do a bit of research in universities, and all that information, all that knowledge stays there when the students leave. Nothing happens after that. And we've seen that in so many institutions, so much money spent by so many organizations to do this. And every time as I do more research into this space and see what are we doing, it's not that we don't have the smart mind or the smart brains, but what are we doing to harness those smart minds and smart brains? And again, without having to train people on what the value of research is, what that basically says is that we don't understand that for me to research an IP solution, sometimes for me to research problems, it takes time, it takes money, it takes equipment, it takes smart solutions. And some of those researches are not for what's going to happen today, this minute, but it's also for some of the problems that we are looking at now, and how are we going to find ways to solve those problems using data, using smart computing as we go into the future. You look at droughts happening across the continent in agriculture. You look at problems with landscape. You look at problems with locust infestation across different parts of East Africa. If you go into healthcare, I mean, what's just happened, the rest of the world is using AI in healthcare to even do surgeries, to do a number of, where are we in Africa? Because even first, we're not collecting the data properly, and we don't even have the experts themselves who can actually participate in this process. So, it's really interesting talking about all these amazing things that AI can do, but if we don't get the foundation right, and we don't support the people who are putting the foundation together, and we don't have a collective approach to developing capacity, to skilling that capacity with practical experiences, not theoretical experiences, and also to allowing ourselves to be immersed in research and development and using some of the current problems in the world to develop our skills process, we will still continue to lag behind in this big conversation of machine learning. A traditional African child who just come out of university is as smart as the one in the US. It's not the difference. But does he have the resource to say, I want to be a machine learning engineer? Can he afford the basic computing? Can he afford the time and money required to go learn these things? And the people he's talking to, the industry, the powers that be, the money, are they interested in what he's saying? Do they understand what he's saying about the value and the use of data in their businesses? So these are all some of the problems that currently exist that we need to look at how we figure out. Sustainability model as well. When you look at centers of excellence, you also need to find ways to sustain those models, so it's not a charity-based organization, and we're not doing NGO work. So for us, when we started the AI Center of Excellence, one of the key things that we focused on, that we believe was the power of R&D, the impact and the outcomes of it, and also the training models. And our goal is to train 6,000 AI engineers across Africa and be able to create AI-driven startups that can actually lead us into the fourth industrial revolution across the 10 centers of excellence that we're trying to build, but also participate with other centers of excellence as well, and other people who are building the same type of models that then allow us to create a larger pool of a shared economy of talent and use that talent. If we look at some of the impacts of AI as a service, you look at the useful nature of data, the insight that we use from that data, especially in some industries that are very lagging behind in Africa, like automation, manufacturing, retail, what this can do to enhance and create efficiency, but even in security as well. We have a lot of, security issues in so many border posts in Africa. How do we use data collected and AI to actually create better security for our people? And also in terms of, food migration as well too. So, my belief is that, the growth model for a center of excellence and what we're doing here currently is for AI to be the driver of change, then capacity development, knowledge centers of excellence then have to be an important part for the driver for 4IR that we're talking about. But also those centers of excellence must also be extremely sustainable as well. And we can also borrow from things that have happened in other markets that have already emerged in Asia and Europe as well. So for us, the key pillars in which we define the model of what we work with is knowledge development, knowledge acquisition, development of products within the industry, where we also get experts and leaders to become part of the conversation and train them, and then R&D, research and development, to build products that could literally create IPs that could change lives in this continent. And that's really, what I believe when we talk about education as being a huge driver for 4IR with AI at the centerpiece of it. My name is John Kamara. Thank you very much. Happy to take any questions, and looking forward to the rest of the sessions as well.
AI Expo Africa is the largest B2B trade event and conference of its kind on the African continent. Now entering its 4th successful year, we've connected thousands of buyers, suppliers, innovators, startups, and investors focused on 4IR technologies you can deploy in your business today. Our 2021 online event will run as a 3-day live show followed by a 30-day on-demand archive, giving your brand maximum exposure to thousands of decision makers and thought leaders. Our trusted online conferencing platform gives delegates live interaction and networking capabilities with 24/7 secure access and the ability to watch archived content so you never miss a talk, all from the comfort of your office or home. Eliminating travel and COVID risk, we put your offerings on a truly global stage in front of hundreds of companies and our trade community's 4,000 plus members. Listen to 80 plus world-class speakers and more than 40 hours of groundbreaking talks that cover case studies, platforms, innovation, and the latest cutting-edge technologies. Our exhibitors and sponsors have access to detailed analytics reports, so you can immediately follow up on leads with delegates that show interest in your brand, content, and products. Join us today and explore AI Expo Africa 2021 online, your gateway to 4IR trade in Africa.